Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, whoever is listening to this thing out there in the ether, welcome to episode, what are we up to now, boys? Episode 3 of Two Daves and
me,
the guy who doesn't like to be called the doc. So we are here today to talk a little bit about orientation. So you've accepted the challenge of a PhD. You think you are the hottest shit around. And now you arrive on campus, whether you be in person or virtually. And what happens? There's some cognitive dissonance rolled into this one because I'm international. I don't have the pleasure of going to a campus right now. Y'all are on lockdown.
True. So
what's going on? What do we do?
So orientation in 2020 is a strange beast for anyone who's just started a program right now, and probably for in the foreseeable future will be the same. So I think in that case, like, we have interesting perspectives. I had a kind of different orientation, but in person on campus a few years ago, and you two lovely gentlemen now have to orientate yourselves digitally. So, I think maybe to give you some insights on what it should be like in a normal kind of non-COVID lockdown, like ruled by the University of Zoom world, that I think what we'll kind of say is, I'll give you a little taste of mine. So like my orientation was slightly different than most other ones because I did it in my home institution. So, I did the PhD in UCD in Dublin, but I'd also did my undergrad, my master's, and an awful lot of my professional working experience in the same university. So, I orientated basically into the town I lived in for 6 or 7 years, for example. So to me, it was relatively easy. It was a continuation of the norm, let's say. Whereas other students in particular, you're basically spending your time getting used to your new kind of living kind of confinement, let's say. Confinement sounds like prison, but yeah, your new academic gilded prison for the next, 3 to 6 years of your intense research career. So, orientating yourself on campus, finding your offices, finding your building, finding your facilities and services. And in UCD, one of the most important things is finding where the lovely sauna and tepidarium is, so you can realize your relaxation vibes in the sauna and the jacuzzi every morning. But yeah, you orientate yourself in two ways: on the campus as an individual, and then into the academic structure you have just joined. So, it's kind of, you warm yourself up and integrate yourself into what is your new kind of research, kind of co-working space, working environment, and your new research family.
Whereas, so I will point out here, Colin, I got a tease of this back in March because I had to drop your ass off at the Smart Lab building, but I didn't get to go in.
No,
so
true.
Not only that, I get to stare at these august halls of knowledge and higher learning and wait for my fucking Uber to show up. So it was basically, one day maybe I'll be able to open those doors and walk right in. So I just from me to you, thank you for that little taste of almost heaven.
Almost heaven. But you joined
point.
Anyway, so what are you going to do? So now you two guys are in the process of a digital onboarding, which is very, very complicated. So currently the campus is officially on kind of lockdown. There's minimal contact hours. It's generally only for undergrad and taught students doing, necessary contact. So lab facilities, face-to-face education that can't be done remotely. Whereas use onboarding onto your PhD is doing it digitally. And it is a difficult process at the best of times. I can't imagine what it's like trying to do it onboarding digitally.
Well, David, let's get your perspective on this, since neither Colin or I want to monopolize this conversation at all. And you're the strong silent one.
I was enjoying that. That was great. So yeah, from my experience, it's been definitely interesting. I think probably it's good to take a bit of a trip back to my orientation to previous experiences. So unlike Colin, I've been in different universities, and I think probably I didn't engage with those as well as I should have first time around, which may explain quite a lot. So I'm probably the man with the longest arts degree known to the world. It took me 5 years to complete a 3-year degree there. Failed a year twice. That was nice. But a big part of it was not having people around, not engaging with that experience at the very, very start, and then getting a little bit overwhelmed. getting to a point where I was like, oh, actually, after the first year, you can't really swan through this. You really need to know what's going on. You need to be at least a little bit integrated into the university life, whether it be socially or from an academic perspective, and being able to do it. So this time around, I made sure that I was doing it right, and spent, I think, probably was a good portion of 2 weeks going onto the website, checking up all the different elements there that are available openly through the library, watching the YouTube videos of the different processes, whether it be trying to search for papers online or understanding where elements are in terms of student supports. And that was useful. And it's definitely helped even the last week, where we've been having supports from the course and the walkthrough. At least I now, not realizing that that's there for the first time, that I've had a chance to reflect on that over the last month or so. And now I'm able to ask questions that are useful for me within that. Although I did have one experience where I was like, oh, do you know what? Let's join a society. That'll be a good idea. So I joined the Hispanic Society, because Spanish is something that I'm learning at the moment, and it's really useful for our community as well, because we've got lots of Spanish speakers in Dublin working in the different areas. So it's quite useful to have it. And joined this Hispanic Society and jumped in and realized that first years are first years, and that I was a granddad. So I was there for a while in this virtual world, bang in the middle of the screen, surrounded by these young, energetic first year students who were just full of life and going through it. And I was like, yeah. About 20 minutes in, I was like, okay, I think I may have to go. This is not what I anticipated. So that was an interesting experience. So I did that part too late. That should have been what I did the first time around. But at the same time, it was fun. We had a laugh over it, and it's challenging. I guess that's a different side of it as well for people coming in as mature students, like ourselves as well, coming back maybe doing a PhD. There are other elements, other challenges that you may not face when you go and do things as an undergrad, and finding your place can be quite tricky. So for me, having yourselves, having the rest of the team in Smart Lab to chat and talk, Dave, you set up a Slack for us, which was great. Having that little space is super. I know that's something that we're going to talk a little bit later on down the line in other episodes, but yeah, 100%. It's been interesting, challenging, because it's draining. I found myself very tired after going through websites and links and pages, and I've got so much stuff saved. It's crazy. But I think a big part of that is trying to structure yourself early on. So it'll be interesting to hear what you've been doing to try and compartmentalize all of this like flood of knowledge that's coming at you.
You've kind of encapsulated it quite well there as well. You're trying to build peer support. So we were all quite lucky in our program to have very, very strong peer support networks built and in place. But for a normal student or somebody that's unsure of the process, that should be your main kind of goal for your first couple of months on your program. Build your peer support, get to know the other people in your school, in your university, in your college, in your research group, in your kind of local little community, because peer support is everything. A problem you face will have been had by somebody else. A insight from another field will be gotten from, other researchers in other buildings in other areas. And then something as simple as having somebody over a desk to kind of say, look, here's my idea. Is this crazy or not? You know what I mean? That's what you want to do. So how did you find it then, Dave, on the onboarding?
So I have two things going against me. Number one, I'm an ocean away, and I'm a foreigner, which I find hugely funny because I spend so much time in Ireland anyway, right? I'm there 3 to 4 times a year for business, so like the conversion here was really funny because I would argue that what UCD did was incredible by integrating with the local embassy as well. So, David, you talked about that society. Well, I have that. It's called the American Embassy, which is a whole bunch of, oh my God, I'm in Ireland. Where do I go? Where do I go? Do I need IDs to go drink? Okay, you know what? Hold the phone. We'll go through this. And so you have this kind of collection of internationals that are basically now starting to look at the world differently. It's, I remember sitting on that call going, yeah, I am really old because I know this stuff. I've already been there, done that. and then coming in through business visas versus student visas and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I kind of had that, that I've been there, but I haven't kind of mentality. So a lot of this stepping back into education, my journey was undergrad was at one school, my master's degree was at another in residence. I was married, so moved into on-campus housing. So I had my local communion. Well, that's different. I did
You can have one of them if you want as well.
I did go to seminary, so I could say that I did have communion, but beside the point. I did have my local community in my building, my little apartment block, if you will, on campus. So that was, almost purpose built. Like, hey, I'm in, I have people that are doing similar things to what I am. And now doing this, the onboarding is digital. So like David, going through and you find out very, very quickly how well someone thought through website design and structure and directories, because jumping from some of the tools, and I won't disparage any of them because I found them useful in their own ways, right? Going through and, clicking almost literally on every single link in my dashboard. What does this do? What does this do? Unlike yourself, David, I have about the tolerance of a gnat to sit there and watch YouTube videos. Ironic because I make them, but I don't have the presence of mind sometimes to sit there and like, you know what? I can't really screw anything up unless I start watching my fees increase. But I can't screw anything up when I'm going in there clicking through things. So I think that was part of it. You mentioned community. I mentioned community. Part of that is the fact that I had UT gents coming in the door as well, right? So it was something like, even this morning, as we're going back and forth about what we're going to talk about in episode 4, which is circles of knowledge, I can bounce some of these ideas off. You're across my virtual desk from me, right? And, imitation being the sincerest form of flattery, you'll probably see some stuff that's coming. But all that to be said, it's an interesting kind of juxtaposition. I'm present in a community. I'm present in this education system, in this cohort, and I'm not. And it's really been great to see other folks that are part of this program. It's a very international program. I mean, the base is all over the world. And so being able to kind of exchange some of those ideas, I think, whether it be Slack or it be WhatsApp or it be any of those type of tools, that in this day and age forms kind of that basis, forms that kind of connection point in ways that, perhaps, it used to be I could just walk down the hall or, I lean over that desk in the library. And I think that's been an early kind of unifying base for a lot of this stuff too, is like, hey, all of a sudden I now have that accessibility. It's a little bit more instant than ever and maybe a little bit more asynchronous too, but I think that's really helped. So website designs, I would urge any university really think about how your students are coming in the door, because you want them to lead down a logical path, not just disappear into the ether when it comes to it and not be confused by process. But yeah, the rest of it, it's, I've found the Smart Lab orientation to be really, really great in terms of, hey, you're here. Doesn't matter where you're from. This is what we're aiming towards. This is what we're trying to head towards. Here are the, it's a relatively small cohort relative to everything, 50 plus people. Here's the people that, the urging of our supervisor to find those folks that are relatively close to you as well, I think was another thing. But that helps you kind of orient. So you have your phase 1s, your phase 2s, and then you're almost done, right? And so each one of those, and the ones that are done, you have each one of those has signposts along the way too, to say, hey, you maybe should check this out and do those type of things. So yeah, that's been my perspective on it so far.
Yeah. And like, okay, to play devil's advocate, let's say on behalf of the universities, it's not an easy thing to do, never mind in the middle of a kind of once in a kind of 100-year pandemic situation with been forced online. So to give perspective, the university that we were all connected to and are connected to has 25,000 plus kind of students affiliated with it at any one time. Its campus is like 250 acres plus, teaches everything from kind of foreign language proficiency skills at a very basic level up to doctorates and professional doctorates in probably hundreds of different fields in thousands of different subjects. And to trying to build an architecture and an infrastructure to cater for that, I can only imagine is an absolute nightmare. But that kind of, it's difficult. There's always issues. There's always overlap. There's always problems trying to register what could be 1,000 undergrad first year students to modules is just something that I'm never having anything to do with that. It seems like chaos. So well done to whoever's in charge of
the rolling registration process.
It's like that. Yeah. Like
if your last name starts between A and AZ, you can go today. I'm like, all right, tomorrow we'll start on the B's. So we'll try to get there. Yeah.
It's madness. So it kind of has to be flexible that way. So that's why I think in particular for graduate students and doctoral students in particular, you have to take ownership of your own journey. You have to root out your own information. You have to be as educated as possible about the process before you begin. So when you do begin, you then know like where to go to solve problems. Who do you contact? And normally what I do is so kind of different to your two experiences. I love in person. If I have a problem, I will go and ask somebody face to face because I found it always solves it quicker for me. So when I orientated, I make sure I do that in every institution, no matter where I'm working, even if I'm visiting or I'm there temporarily. I dedicate time to finding out who are the people that make the things happen in the building or the university or the school, and then I get to know them. So if I have a problem, I can drop in and say, hi, Mary, I'm having a problem with registration. How do I fix it? And it gets fixed immediately. So that's a very important part of orientation in a non-digital world. Let's say.
Yeah, you find them in the sauna, right, Colin?
Well, sometimes, or the restaurant, or I do it at events. I constantly love doing it at events. So I love going to events. I love running events. I love that kind of interpersonal nature. So you'd be surprised who you found. I've met people studying PhDs at the same time as me at startup events in the city that they were on, and you have a bond over meeting at the event, and then they become a contact of yours. And even if they're in a different field, they still are there if you need to ask them something or kind of reference something with them. And then you two have the joy coming up of being able to experience our library. Oh, the multiple floors of library and the access. And so, yeah, physical orientation is something that will be coming hopefully soon as possible for you two, but something then that students should do, get orientated with your library, the supports, the offerings. So I know UCD has an amazing math support center. If you are having issues with maths, they're there with trained educators and mathematicians to provide support for you. If you know it's there, if you've interacted them at the beginning, if on the off chance you need it, they're there and you know how to access it. So you're nearly like finding out how to cut off major problems before they come down the line.
Yeah,
I think one of the things
go ahead, David.
Well, yeah, no problem at all. I'm just going to cut in between all of this because it's quite interesting listening to your two perspectives. And really, I think what it is you're setting your foundation for what's to come, not just with your PhD, but actually beyond that as well. And I think that's one of the things with it. It's you're trying to find, what direction you're trying to head in. I think that was quite an interesting way of looking at it. And from that, then, if you take the time, I think a lot of people are quite keen to get writing. I think a lot of, in general, lecturers and professors, put that pressure on people. You must be writing, you must be getting things down on paper. But in reality, if you're not kind of focused on the right thing, that writing can be wasted. Okay, it may be something you might use at a later stage, but you may change completely. And I think if you can get yourself set up almost like from a project management perspective, that where your files are, where the resources are, that when, like you're saying, those challenges come up at any point during the process, that you have that ready to go. And that it gives you a sense of control. That's what it was for me, trying to feel, I think that's probably the educator coming out of me needing that. I need to feel like I know what I'm doing at some point. And, now that I can say that, if I need something, I know exactly the person, like Colin's saying, to reach out to. And I would, like, it is difficult not having face-to-face contact, not being able to just knock on a door and do it. But you know what, in a way, there's a whole other level of accessibility there, so that you can send a message through a chat function. You can pick up the phone. I always think that that's really useful. I think sometimes better than an email. There's so much coming through. You can imagine if you've got those thousands of students coming in, and if someone picks up the phone, you're being able to, a little bit like this conversation, cut through it and get to the top of that. But that is really that's really crucial from that perspective. And one of the things that stood out to me, I think, is it was a really nice human touch. And it's what was done for us. And because we're an international cohort, we had some Irish myths and legends and heritage and music that was played over the last week or so, which has been really fun to see. And it's been a kind of an open arms approach to those who can't be here with us. Hopefully they'll be with us at some point. But I think that was quite beautiful to see, and that they're share the culture of what Ireland is, because it's a pity that we can't have the likes of you, Dave, and others actually here with us to enjoy that experience, because I think that's a huge part of orientation in a nutshell. So hopefully we'll be able to do that when the next year comes around, or even the year afterwards. But we will do it, I think, at some point.
Yeah, American trad music is not like Irish trad music. I'm just saying. I might bring my banjo. See what happens. But
you can't beat a
we have
wrong.
banjos too. Oh
God, they're everywhere. They're everywhere.
Yeah, they are indeed. But no, they're very, very good points, and I think we all kind of touched on them. Is about when you're orientating yourself in multiple ways into different kind of environments. So you're orientating yourself into your new campus, you're orientating into your new university, you're orientating into the structures that are in place to allow you to do your research. But then also from the research perspective, you're orientating yourself in your field, and you're orientating your proposed work to whatever your outcome goal is at the end. Because in an awful lot of cases, the truth is an awful lot of projects change and evolve as they go. So as you said, David, you might spend an awful lot of time writing at the beginning and you may not use it. So no, that's not wasted, because you're learning how to write and it's there, if you need it. But taking the time at the beginning to orientate yourself in your field, in your subject, in your area, and just find where you fit is a very, very good kind of tip. And it can take weeks, it can take months, hopefully it won't take years, but if it does, so be it. You want to make sure by the end of your research it's right, it's in the right place, it's where it's meant to be, it's where you want it to be, and it's going to be impactful going forward. And then there's loads of tips and kind of tools and tricks you can do to get yourself orientated early like that, which I think we're going to discuss in a forthcoming episode.
Yes, something bibliographies and circles of knowledge, and maybe a little plumb line or two.
Exactly.
So we'll wrap this up in a nice little bow. Orientation, I'm not even going to spend the time rehashing everything you said, Colin, because you said it so well. But in essence, physical orientation, time, place, whatever. Digital orientation, what are my resources? How can I find them? How can I dig into them? There's probably a whole episode that needs to be dedicated to libraries and actual research finding, frameworks, reference managers. That's
search protocols, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and there's a religious debate in there too. I have a feeling. Well, I know there's a religious debate in there as well. So physical, digital, setting your foundations. This is really about setting those foundations. You can't build a house if you don't have a foundation. You're the construction guy, David, so you can probably echo this a little bit better than any of us can. But setting those foundations, understanding where you're going to build your PhD house, your tome of wisdom, as it were, or expertise, supposedly, as it comes out. So with that, episode 3 is in the bag, my friends. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Hopefully this was useful to you. Comment, subscribe, chase us down on Twitter and LinkedIn. All those things will be circumspect to wherever I'm pointing in this video, because I haven't done that yet, but it'll be there. And thank you for your time today.